Hey guys, I'm Karla Dennis and I want to give you 5 tips on how to teach your kids financial literacy. I think it's so important to teach kids financial literacy so that they can grow up with the right financial tools to be successful. So tip number 1 is really, you got to teach your kids financial literacy at a very early age. Kids are super smart. They're like sponges, and believe it or not, they start learning about money very young. I think the appropriate age is around 3 to 5 years old that you should start teaching your kids about financial literacy. One of the things that I did was I made sure that I gave my kids the concept of work, earn, and make money. Just that connection was so important to get across to my children. That hard work turned into dividends. And in this particular case, dividends mean that you were earning money. I used to literally pay my kids based on their report cards. And people say, why would you do that? Because I would tell my children that their role in life was to go to school, get educated, get very good grades, and be good stewards, be a good person, take care of others. So I would pay them $5 for an A, and I would give them $4 for a B. But what I wouldn't do is I didn't pay for C's, and certainly not D's. And you may say to yourself, well, Karla, why didn't you pay for C's? Because I told my kids that if you want to go through this life being average, you'll blend in with the masses. But if you want to be successful, you're going to have to come above and beyond average. So I never rewarded average. That just was not an option for me. The moment my kids would start to ask for things was really when I had to hammer the concept. I had to tell my kids, let me tell you what my role is as a parent. My role as a parent is to provide for you. The law says I need to put a roof over your head, clothes on your back, feed you, and make sure that you are educated. I needed them to understand that those were all of their needs, and their wants were something that I chose to do, fulfill their wants. But they were responsible for making sure they fulfilled all of their wants. I remember back in college, I used to date this guy, and his mother used to always say, I will give you 100% of what you need and 50% of what you want. And I never understood that concept back then. I actually thought, wow, she is a really bizarre mom. But honestly, that was some of the best advice that I got and some of the best advice that I am going to give you. Only give your kids a certain amount of their wants. For me, it was only 25% of what they wanted were they going to get from me. The other 75%, they were going to have to earn and buy on their own. That was really important to link that concept of earn and buy. One of the other things I think is really important is to play financial games with your kids. Spend some time on games. Why? Number 1, games make kids think strategically. And number 2, there's some great games out there. My favorite game back then when I was growing up and still now is Monopoly. I love Monopoly, and the reason why is because in Monopoly, it teaches you, number 1, that you can buy real estate. Right? Love that concept. And when someone lands on your property, they get paid rent. So it really hammered the concept of purchase and hammered the concept of the value of buy, and that when you own something, it even has more value because people pay rent. So it really nailed down concepts that they were learning early on and they were going to be able to use for the rest of their life. So games are a great way to teach your kids about financial literacy. Choose whatever game you like. Monopoly just happens to be my favorite. The other thing that I want to tell you about is that you have to make sure that financial consequences of your decisions, right? Financial consequences are so important. And so one of the things that I did to institute financial consequences is that when I would give my kids allowance, I would use the jar method. They had to put their money in a jar. Why? Because it provided a visual cue for them to actually see their money. I opened bank accounts for them when they were young, but it just seemed like they couldn't see the bank account, so it wasn't real for them. In order to make it real, I came up with the jar. And when it came time for them to purchase something, I allowed them to take money out of their jar. And I made sure I gave them money in dollar bills and in coins, so they can literally see their money diminishing as they would take their money out of that jar. You know what that did for them? That made them really think twice about how they were going to spend their money. And the key word is their money. See, when your kids understand it's their money, their decision making automatically changes when it comes to spending money that is actually theirs versus yours. Again, going back to that 25% of their wants, I'm going to fulfill, and 75% they're going to fulfill. So those consequences became very, very important. And one of the things that I would do is I would allow my kids the day after Christmas to actually take some of their money to go shopping. Why did I do that? Because I never believed in giving my kids a lot of things for Christmas. I always thought that that was a waste of money. But who doesn't want a good present? So I made sure they had one good gift that they could open under the tree, and then the day after Christmas, they could go shopping and they could spend their money on whatever it is that they wanted to purchase. You want to make sure you teach your kids the decision-making process when it comes to money. And when I would allow them to go purchase the day after Christmas, it was really interesting how they spent their money. Let me give an example of that. I would let them take only $100 of the money that they had saved. We would go the day after Christmas when there were the sales, and they could purchase stuff. You guys know I have 4 sons, so they each have different personalities. One of my sons, he loves shoes. All of them really love shoes, but one really loves shoes. And so he would come back with maybe 3 or 4 pairs of shoes and different colors that maybe he only spent 20 or 30 bucks on. And my other kids, they would come back with their name brand shoes, right? I remember back in the day, they would come with those Jordan 18s. That was so important to them to get those name brand shoes. But they were only able to get 1 pair of shoes. So then when we would come home and they would be like opening up their boxes and showing their dad, a couple of the kids would have several pairs of shoes to show their dad. But one of them, my son Carlton, oh my goodness, he would only have 1 pair of shoes to show his dad. And that really made him realize that, you know what? My money didn't go as far when I only purchased 1 item. This is where thinking through the process of how they spend their dollars became super real for them. Because most people want to have several things versus 1 thing. But allowing them to go spend their money, to go to the cash register, to pay the actual cashier was an entirely unique experience that really, really brought home the value of spending money. Allowing them to go spend their money really brought home the value of spending money and the value of decision-making process around your money. You have to decide, do I buy 1 thing for $100? And don't forget the tax, because if it came over $100, mommy wasn't gonna pay for the tax. So you have to factor in paying for the tax. Or do you buy maybe 3 things for less and have some money left over? That decision-making process around money is extremely, extremely important. The other tip that I want to give you is making sure that you as a parent model good financial behavior. It's not do as I say, it's really do as I do. Kids mimic the behavior of their parents. Being that I was a person that was born and raised in Compton, I didn't really have a lot of money for luxuries. Until this day, I'm not a name brand girl. I only go to stores like Ross and Marshall's. I always shop on a budget, not because I have to, but purely because I want to. And I want to make sure that my money goes far. So I take my kids with me when I'm shopping. I show them how I am very budget conscious. And I do that so that they will learn how to think through their money and make sure that they're spending a lot of money on things that are going to return them money versus things that are going to be consumable, right? When we spend our money on consumable things, things that vanish, things that go away, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on that. So I made sure that they understood the whole value by actually doing it myself, actually walking the walk and talking the talk. I think that's so important as a parent that we not just tell our kids, but we show our kids through our actions. every single day. So remember, giving your kids lessons in financial literacy are important. Making sure you do it early, making sure that you model the behavior, making sure you give them consequences, making sure you teach them the value of money, and making sure you teach them how to earn their money is extremely important to teaching your kids financial literacy. If you enjoyed this video, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.